All right, welcome back. So today, well, now I got the Mojave on the bench because I want to check our data log, and I want to make sure that I'm getting full trigger, because this is the first time I was able to hit full trigger. So now we're going to pop which covers in a long time. The one stuffed off in the corner here. Mount it sideways on a plate. So it makes it a little tough when you got to check your data log using the old SRX 200 receiver. So our throttle is right here with the extra wire. Brown is ground. I should go that way. And this is the Mamba Monster X8S ESC. A new version of this firmware is available. If you wish to upgrade the latest version, we don't want to upgrade this thing. I was talking to Flowpacks, and the old Mamba Monster X8S and the old XLX2, because if you guys saw on my XLX2 in the DB XLE 2.0, the XLX2 only drew not even 300 amps. I'm maxing out at 300 amps. Now these old Mamba Monster X8Ss, they were pulling 350 to 400 amps, or 350 amps, I think. So we're not going to upgrade this firmware. So if you see this on your device, do not upgrade it. They have pulled a bunch of power. I feel they pulled a bunch of power for the fires that were happening on the XLX2s. So I'm going to take a look, and we're going to see how much amp draws on this thing. So I'm going to get you guys down. We're going to take a look. All right, so I got you guys angled. We're going to just close this out. They're reading our program. It's putting the program in there. Well, anyhow, we're going to look at base. Actually, we're going to go to logging, because that's what I want to see. And then you see here's our data log. So we're going to download log, and I want to see how many amps we drew out of this ESC today. And then I'm going to see if I can make any changes to maximize it. The other thing we're going to look at, like I showed you guys before, is full throttle. I really need to make sure that this RC is going full throttle. And since I was only able to get one full throttle pull, and I was in that full trigger probably to the count of 3 before I let off. Now we have a lot of runs in this data log, so it should just be the last 2 runs. That's what I'm concerned with. All the other runs were probably the 4 runs from the park, which we can take a look at those too, just to make sure, you know, because I know I wasn't getting full trigger pulls over there. But that's a lot of logs in there. And as you see, automatic data reset, I have it disabled. So I can tell I haven't tuned this ESC that's in here, because this would be reset at 90, which means this data log has never been cleared. So all the runs we've been doing with this thing basically has been is still stored in here. Look at all these runs that are in here. Wow. Look at all this. That's a lot of full trigger pulls right there. So here's that first run we did. There's that last run we did. So I want to power out, 95.6% power out. Maximum amps, 112. Ripple, 1.04. So ripple is getting up there. If I start gearing up on this thing, I'm going to have to add a cat pack to this thing. I definitely don't want to see over 2.5 to 3 on the ripple, but 1.04, that's a high ripple amount. And then our throttle is saying maximum is 1.903. I need to see what my throttle is. So we go to advanced. Full forward is 1.861, and it saw more than that. So it's seeing full throttle at 1.86, which means we're seeing full throttle early from where I'm pulling it. And what was our throttle on this thing? Throttle 1.859. That was the full trigger pull. And let me take a look at this one. See, 1.5, and it's saying 1.9 is the maximum it's seen. So 1.5 is barely half trigger. So this run here is the one I really want to see. You can see I peaked out right there. 1.851. And it didn't peak out. So it did see 861. So 6.2. It saw it right there on full trigger. So I was full trigger for a long time. And it's funny, the trigger fell off. 860, 852, 840. 825, and I was holding it. 829. I was holding that trigger, and you can see it looks like the trigger is fluctuating. And the throttle's the black, which is this black line right here. This black line should have been pegged. That sucks. So definitely going to put a better controller on it, because the controller is fluctuating at full trigger. I was standing there holding full trigger for a long time, which is that black line. You can see right here when I started to ramp it up. And horsepower, if you look, horsepower peaked for a long time right there at the top. Look how long horsepower was peaked as it went by me. And then right at the end, it had a little blip on the let off. You see how even the trigger here, it bleeps up and then lets off, falls off. See, here's our black line, which is the trigger. Look at that. Straight across. This whole run is trigger, but it's all shaky right in here. And then right here, it gets real steady on the trigger. And it's steady at 1.846. But the trigger literally was bouncing up and down the whole time, and I never moved the trigger. It's not like I was jogging or anything. Like, I'm pegged like this holding it, and it's literally sending a signal in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. So at least that's what the ESC is seeing. And when it's doing that, you know, it can't be horsepower based. I know we're hitting bumps, but it's not like my trigger is moving in and out, in and out, in and out. I literally was holding trigger the whole time. I know at the beginning, right in here, I did let off the trigger right here because it started to go into a little wheel stand, but then settled down and took off. And you can see right there 1838, and right before it 1843. So I was harder into it and had to let off a little bit to bring the front end down. And I remember that on the run. But that black line should be steady, and it's just not on our throttle right here. And then it's saying 93.3% of power used. Maximum was 95.6% power out. Temperature for ESC got to 132, not hot at all. Motor temps are 0. Steering voltage is set to probably 5.5. So it did see a full trigger pull. See? 1.861. So it did see a full trigger pull somewhere. And I'm going to check it on the run I slid out. So let's get rid of horsepower over here. Horsepower. Going to get rid of that. We're going to check our last run, because here's our last 2 runs. Every time you move something, you got to do this again, which I don't like. So here's our last run before we went home. That was the drive back, which I can care less about. So over here is our run, and you can see our black line, the trigger. Look how steady up the trigger is. See, I did have a blip there, but look how steady my trigger is. Look how slow that pull is, constantly up. Watch that number, the throttle. Look at that steady pull up at peak power. So watch this. We started over here. Here's where I hit the trigger. So I take off, I hit the trigger, 1.5, 1.6, 1.64, 1.60. Then we blip it up a little bit more. You can see a little step up. I get these little pulls, 1.7. Then we steadily pull it 1.8, 1.8, and then I let off. I never got to full trigger. And the run's over with. So you can see how steady my trigger pull was from the beginning of this run. And ripple, 103, 79, 90, 103. So maximum ripple was right at this little burst, this little step up I did right here. We had a little burst of ripple. Because I pull the trigger, I pull. I don't do a slow, steady pull. It's actually, I pull, see if it spins, pull, see if it spins, pull. And then when I get past halfway, I can pull it slowly. And that's exactly what it's showing in here. So I'm going to tune this ESC now. So data log, no, we don't want to save it. Let's go to logging. Let me clear this ESC out. Clear data log. Okay. We're going to clear it out. Save some data in there. And then I'm going to make some changes to this ESC now. So here needs to be 90%. 90%. Oh, and sampling I have at 5, which is normal. Log data, data log, empty. Automatically data reset at 90%. And then motor, I'll leave that alone. Advanced, arm time, Idle data log, nope. Auxiliary wire, live data enabled is disabled. Average, let's go to power. Start, low, maximum power 100, reverse percentage 50, because like I said before, I just adjust it with my controller. We're going to put a Futaba in it. Brake amount 50%, that's fine. BEC voltage, it's got a stock one in it. With reverse, idle lipo cutoff, no cutoff. Update. I'm going to check my logging, make sure it stayed, because like I said, I normally do updates after every screen. 90%. Advanced. Power. Basic. About. And then let's look at software. So here's the original software, 2.07. Back to the older software. It's already been revised once, which I think that revision was okay, but I think they took some power out of it. I know the new one, which is going to be in there, is definitely going to have some power out. See, the current version I have in there is the 2.07, which is this one. There is the 2.13, and I don't want that in there. So we're definitely not going to update it. So, alright, so I plugged in the ESC real quick. What I want to do is recalibrate this controller. So the way you do it with Castle, so we're going to plug in these batteries. That's just the regulator turning on the fans. So controller on, full trigger, powered on. Reverse, neutral. That's your final. So all you do is, before you turn your switch on, you full trigger it, turn your switch on, you wait for all those funky beeps. When that stops, go to full reverse. You get a bunch more of those funky beeps, I call them. And then when that stops and it goes to a steady beep, 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 go to neutral. It'll do those funky beeps again, and then give you a final saying that it did it. Now that we've reset that, I'm going to plug back in the Castle link. And we're going to take a look at those settings real quick. We'll be right back. Alright, so we got the Castle link plugged in. Here's that warning saying there's an upgrade. Please don't upgrade it. I'm not the only one that feels like Castle on their new version has killed a bunch of power out of their systems. But let's head over to advanced. Let's check these triggers, and what do you know? Look at full forward, 2.050 instead of 1.8. Yeah. And look at reverse. Reverse isn't even 1 point anything. It's 0.895. And neutral. .482. So there you go. That's letting you know that there was no way I was going to achieve full throttle. And this is something I wanted to talk about when it comes to Castle Link and any other manufacturer out there. I know Hobby Wing has started some data logging, but don't show you stuff like this. It's Ra Schifrin and Kevin, when he was over there, Ra's hooked up and looked at some of the data that Hobby Wing is allowing you to see, which, you know, I think is a good thing, but they're just far behind Castle. And I don't think Castle has enough data either. So I think Castle can improve on this, but at least it's a start and it gives us really good stuff to look at. Now remember, in our logging, when I looked at the amps that the ESC was putting out, it wasn't very much at all, and it's not because I'm not getting full trigger, full forward. And I think that's why on my graph, the black line, when I was holding the trigger steady, it was all wavy because the ESC was still looking for full trigger. So it's like, you know, the ESC and the receiver and radio not being calibrated definitely will create issues. So I definitely wasn't getting the power that I needed out of this ESC. And like I said, when the Mamba Monster X8S first came out, I was seeing over 300 amps, which I thought was really, really amazing. This one, you know, I was barely seeing 100 amps out of this thing. So, and a lot of that has to do with gearing, but not that low full trigger. I should see at least, you know, 250 amps. Now, I know Castle has killed a lot of the amps with their line because of, you know, especially the XLX2, because of fires. I was on Flowpax Live the other day, and I brought up that question because I was barely seeing 300 amps out of the DBXLE 2.0, and that's got the new updated version software in it, where my old one, you know, I was seeing 400, 450 amps out of it, my first XLX2, and I was amazed that it seemed so much faster. And he was telling me to keep in the old software. So I'm not the only one feeling this way. If there's somebody else out there that's noticing that, please speak up, because Flowpax was saying some stories, and I don't know if it's true, that the original one that went out to some of the creators out there, that you know, the test mules, as they call them, you know, they were pushing, you know, 500, 600 amps out of these things. And he said some crazy number like 800 amps out of one of them, which I think is just absurd. That's just crazy. The power would be astronomical. But, you know, I have heard of 450, 500 amps, and I've never seen anywhere close to that. Like I said, I was seeing 400, maybe 450 amps out of, you know, my original XLX2. And I was like, man, this thing's putting out some power. But ever since I've updated them because of the fire issues, like I said, we only saw, what, 298 amps out of the DBXLE 2.0 at full trigger running across grass. That's a heavy load. That's a lot of traction. It's still good amps, don't get me wrong, but I saw that out of a Mamba Monster X8S. And that's what I was saying when I built the yellow speed car. You know, we were looking at the amp draw on that, and that was 200, 300 amps out of that thing. And I'm like, man, you know, we can gear way up because, you know, this thing should be closer to 400 amps. So we had a long way to go on that thing. But there we go. I'm going to just make a video on this because the people that don't want to watch data logs, and let me explain this. I'm just trying to help the people out there, things that I've learned over the years with speed running and having issues, and how I use the data log to help me better my cars, better the running experience, whether it's a speed run or not. Remember, this was my basher. I never really set it up for any kind of speed, so it was good enough the way it was. So I didn't make a lot of the changes in the Castle Link because I just didn't need it. You know, it's a basher. Take it out, run it, beat up on it. You have the power that you're happy with. Run it that way. But now that we're trying to get every little ounce and fix all the problems out of this thing, you know, it's time we start looking at data log and that kind of stuff, and hopefully it's helping somebody else out there that's scared to use this stuff or scared to make changes. The little knowledge I have, I'm trying to share it with you guys because I just don't see this information out there on the internet from a lot of the, you know, big speed run guys. So there we go. Like, comment, subscribe. Hopefully this is helping somebody. Get out there, build a speed car of your own. Let's get to 100 miles an hour off-road. I know I'm trying it with one of the worst RCs to do it with, and we're not doing half bad. We're consistently in the 70 miles an hour since I put on these tires. So that's telling me with the wheelie bar, the tires, the suspension changes I've made on this thing, we're consistently running into the 70s, which is good because the car's really controllable now, so we can start gearing up, adding power, that kind of stuff. I still got to gear up, still got to make a change to that center diff, and definitely got to remove that rubber flap on the front, which I said I was going to do and I forgot to do, and it created a problem. But there we go. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.